You'd think announcing your engagement would be one of the happiest moments of your life, right? Yeah, me too. Turns out, for me, it was the start of a nightmare I never signed up for. I'm Lauren, 30F, and my fiancé Daniel, 31M, proposed to me last March. We've been together for 6 years. He's my best friend, my biggest supporter, and the love of my life. When he got down on one knee, everything felt perfect. I was over the moon. I thought my family would be too. I was wrong. My mom and half-sister Madison, 24F, decided my engagement wasn't a celebration. It was a personal attack. Let me give you a little backstory. My mom married my stepdad when I was 5, and Madison is their daughter. We grew up in the same house, but we were never really close. She's always had this weird competitive streak with me. As kids, she'd throw a tantrum if I got more attention. If I got a compliment, she had to one-up it. If I won an award, she'd sulk for days. As we got older, it only got worse. I got into college on a scholarship. Madison didn't go at all. I built a stable career while she bounced from one thing to the next, never sticking with anything for long. I've been in a committed relationship with Daniel for years, while she's jumped from one chaotic relationship to another. So when Daniel proposed, I should have known Madison would make it about her. The first red flag came when I called my mom to share the news. "Oh, honey," she said, voice tight. "Madison's not going to like this." I laughed, thinking she was joking. She wasn't. "She's been struggling so much lately," Mom continued. "You know how hard breakups are. Maybe you should hold off on making any big announcements until she's in a better place." I was stunned. Hold off? Mom, I just got engaged. I want to celebrate, not tiptoe around Madison's feelings. Well, you know how sensitive she is. I knew exactly how sensitive she was, but I refused to shrink my happiness for her. So, I ignored Mom's warning and posted the announcement on social media. Within hours, Madison made her own announcement. She was engaged to a guy she'd been dating for 3 months. I felt my stomach drop when I saw her post. The ring, the caption, "Can't wait to marry the love of my life." It all felt off, forced, like she needed to prove something. Daniel raised an eyebrow when I showed him. "Didn't she just start dating that guy?" "Yep." He sighed, rubbing his temples. "She's trying to steal your thunder." I wanted to give her the benefit of the doubt. Maybe she was just caught up in the excitement. Maybe it was real. But deep down, I knew. This wasn't about love. It was about me. I kept my mouth shut, though. It wasn't my business. If she wanted to rush into a marriage, that was on her. Fast forward to July. Madison's whirlwind marriage imploded. Her husband cheated on her with her best friend. 2 months after the wedding, she filed for divorce. I genuinely felt bad for her. I reached out, offered support, but she barely responded. At first, I thought she was just grieving, but then I realized she wasn't ignoring everyone, just me. And then it hit me. She didn't want my support. She wanted to blame me. From what I pieced together, she saw my engagement as a challenge she had to win. When her marriage collapsed, she convinced herself it was my fault. By the time fall rolled around, things were tense. Mom started acting weird. Every time I mentioned wedding planning, she'd get quiet or change the subject. I figured she was just avoiding the topic because of Madison's situation. I should have seen it coming. Then, in mid-November, Mom called me. It was strange. She rarely called. She was more of a text once a month kind of person. But I answered, thinking maybe she wanted to talk about the wedding. I was so wrong. The conversation started off normal enough. She asked how I was doing, how Daniel was. Then, casually, she dropped, "So, you're really going through with the wedding?" I frowned. "Yeah, of course. Everything's set. We've booked the venue, the caterer, the flowers. Most of it's paid for." She sighed. Not a normal sigh. A long, dramatic one. The kind that meant she was about to drop some nonsense on me. "Well," she said, dragging out the word, "I've been thinking about Madison, and I really think you should reconsider." I blinked. "Reconsider what?" "The wedding, Lauren." She hesitated, like she was gearing up for a speech. "It's just, Madison's still so heartbroken from the divorce. Having a big celebration like this, so soon after everything she's been through, it feels a little insensitive. I actually laughed. Wait, you think I should cancel my wedding for Madison? Well, yes, she said, like it was the most reasonable thing in the world. She's been through so much. Seeing you get married so soon after her divorce, it's going to hurt her. A lot. I was speechless. Mom, I said, trying to stay calm. We've been planning this wedding for almost a year. The venue's booked. The deposits are paid. How can you ask me to just cancel it? You could do something smaller, she suggested. A church ceremony, maybe. Just immediate family. That way, you're still married, but it's not such a big production. You wouldn't be flaunting it. Flaunting it. I felt a flash of anger. Mom, this isn't about flaunting anything. It's about celebrating my relationship with Daniel. We've been together for 6 years. This is our day. She sighed again, heavier this time. I just think, if you really loved your sister, you'd do this for her. I clenched my jaw. Mom, I get that Madison's going through a rough time, but this has nothing to do with her. Daniel and I have been planning this for so long. It's not fair to ask us to change everything because of her choices. She didn't like that. Her choices? Mom snapped. She didn't choose for her husband to cheat on her. She didn't choose for her life to fall apart. No, I said evenly. But she did choose to marry a guy she barely knew after 3 months. That was the wrong thing to say. Mom lost it. She accused me of being cruel, selfish, heartless. She even threw in the classic, I thought I raised you better than this. I'd had enough. Mom, I'm not canceling my wedding, I said firmly. End of discussion. And then, I hung up. I sat there, shaking with anger, my heart pounding. Then I grabbed my phone and called Daniel. The second he answered, I blurted, "You're not going to believe what my mom just said." When I told him everything, he was just as stunned as I was. Who asks their own daughter to cancel her wedding for someone else's divorce? He muttered. I sighed, rubbing my temples. Apparently, my mom. I wish I could say that was the end of it. But, of course, it was only the beginning. Over the next few weeks, my mom went from annoying to relentless. At first, it was just the occasional guilt trip. Madison's been crying a lot lately. She can't even hear the word wedding without breaking down. I just think a small ceremony would be so much more thoughtful, Lauren. Your sister is going through the hardest time of her life, and you're just carrying on like nothing happened? But when I didn't cave, she doubled down. She started calling more frequently, always circling back to the same argument. Sometimes she'd sound sweet, coaxing. Other times, her voice was tight, accusing. I just don't understand why you're being so stubborn about this. This isn't just about you, Lauren. A wedding is about family. You used to be such a kind girl. What happened to you? I stopped picking up her calls, and that's when Madison got involved. At first, it was just a few texts. Passive-aggressive, but subtle. Must be nice to have everything go perfectly for you. I bet you're loving all this attention. Don't you think it's a little soon for a big celebration? I ignored her, but then she escalated. She started leaving long, emotional voicemails. Her voice was shaky, pitiful, dramatic. I can't believe you don't care about what I'm going through. You were supposed to be my sister. Do you know what it's like to have your entire life fall apart while someone else gets everything they ever wanted? I don't think I can even come to the wedding. It would be too painful. But then again, that's probably what you want, isn't it? And the worst part? Mom and Madison were feeding off each other. Mom would call me, voice hushed and heavy. Madison was crying all night thinking about your wedding. The next day, Madison would text me, "Mom's so upset about how you're handling this." It was exhausting. I felt like I was being pulled in 1,000 different directions, constantly defending myself against something that shouldn't even need defending. One night, I was sitting on the couch, mindlessly scrolling through my phone when I got another text from Madison. "I hope you know you're ruining this family. You're selfish, Lauren. I don't know how you sleep at night." I stared at the screen, my jaw clenching. Daniel, sitting beside me, noticed immediately. He put down the remote. "What's wrong?" Wordlessly, I handed him my phone. He read the message, his face darkening. "This is insane," he muttered. "How much longer are you going to let them do this to you?" I swallowed hard, my throat tight. "I don't know. And then, before I could stop myself, the words just tumbled out. I think I need to uninvite them. Daniel set my phone down and turned to me. His expression softened, but he didn't look surprised. If anything, he looked relieved. I've been thinking the same thing, he admitted. But I didn't want to push you. It's your family. I let out a slow breath. They're just going to make things worse if they're there. I keep thinking about it. How they'll act, what they'll say. I don't want to be walking down the aisle wondering if Madison is going to start sobbing to make a scene. I don't want to hear Mom whispering to guests about how insensitive I'm being. I don't want them turning my wedding into their personal pity party. Daniel reached for my hand, his thumb brushing over my knuckles. Then uninvite them. His voice was firm. You don't owe them anything. Hearing him say that, without hesitation, made me feel lighter. I pulled out my laptop and opened a new email. I kept it short and factual. I explained that their actions over the past few months, the guilt-tripping, the manipulation, the constant pressure, had made it clear they weren't actually supportive of my wedding. That their behavior had caused me significant stress, and for my own peace of mind, I had decided they were no longer invited. I stared at the words for a long moment, my chest tight, my hands trembling slightly. Then I hit send. Within an hour, the responses started rolling in. Mom was first. Her email was the masterpiece of guilt-tripping. I never thought my own daughter would betray me like this. You're choosing a man over your own blood. Your father would be so disappointed in you if he were still alive. I read it once, then deleted it. Next came Madison. Hers was pure anger. You're jealous of me. That's why you're doing this. You've always been jealous. Jealous? Of what, exactly? Her failed marriage? The way she could manipulate our mother so easily? She ended her email with, "You'll regret this when you realize you've destroyed this family." I didn't respond to her either. But the fallout didn't stop there. Over the next few days, the flying monkeys started coming out of the woodwork. An uncle I hadn't spoken to in years called to tell me I was being immature and should let it go for the sake of family harmony. A cousin I barely knew left me a voicemail. "I can't believe you do something like this to your own mother." At first, it was overwhelming. But then, something amazing happened. The people who actually mattered started showing up for me. My dad's sister, Aunt Karen, called me and said, "I'm proud of you for standing up for yourself. You've put up with their nonsense for long enough." My cousin Jenna, who had always been the family informant, sent me a long text, "Don't let them get to you. Everyone who really knows you is on your side." Even my godmother, who never got involved in family drama, called to say, "Your wedding should be about love and celebration, not drama and bitterness." Their support meant everything to me. For the first time in weeks, I felt like I wasn't alone in this fight. But, of course, Madison wasn't done. A week later, Jenna called me, her voice full of barely contained amusement. "You're not going to believe this." I groaned. "What now?" Jenna snorted. "Madison's telling people you uninvited her because you're threatened by her." I blinked. Threatened? By what? Jenna hesitated, then sighed. "She's saying you're worried Daniel has feelings for her." I almost dropped my phone. What? "Yeah," Jenna said, clearly trying not to laugh. "She's claiming Daniel was flirting with her, and you found out, so you're trying to get rid of her to save face." I couldn't even form words. I had no words. This was a new level of insanity. I wanted to believe no one would take her seriously. But I also knew Madison. She would spin this story over and over until she found someone gullible enough to believe it. Daniel, sitting next to me, noticed my expression. "What's wrong?" I handed him my phone. He read the text, then stared at me. Then he laughed. "She is out of her damn mind." I let out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. "What do we do?" I asked. Daniel smirked. "We do nothing." "Nothing?" "Yeah. Let her spin whatever story she wants. The people who matter, they know the truth." I nodded slowly. Daniel was right. I wasn't going to waste another second playing Madison's game. She wanted drama? Let her create it without me. By the time January rolled around, I thought I had seen every possible version of Madison's jealousy. I was wrong. It started one evening while Daniel and I were curled up on the couch, finally relaxing after a long day of finalizing wedding details. We were watching some mindless reality TV, just enjoying the silence, when his phone buzzed. He glanced at it, and I immediately saw his expression shift. His whole body tensed. "What is it?" I asked, already bracing myself for bad news. He turned the phone toward me. A text from Madison. "Hey Daniel, I really need someone to talk to. I know you probably think I'm a terrible person right now, but I'm really struggling, and I feel like you're the only one who understands. Can we meet up?" I stared at the message, my skin crawling. Daniel exhaled sharply. "What the hell is this? She's never even liked you," I muttered. "Why would she suddenly want to talk to you?" Daniel shook his head, locking his phone. "I'm not responding. This feels off." It was off. Over the next few days, the text kept coming, each one more desperate. "I have no one else to turn to. I feel so alone, and I don't think Lauren understands. You've always been so kind to me, Daniel. I appreciate you more than you know." I felt physically sick reading them. Daniel and Madison had never been close. He was always polite to her, of course, because that's the kind of guy he is. But there was never any bond, no late-night conversations, no inside jokes. She was rewriting history, trying to paint some picture of them as kindred spirits. I could feel the anger bubbling inside me. "She's trying to set something up," I said finally. Daniel nodded. "Feels like it. Like she wants me to slip up or say something she can twist." And sure enough, her next message made her true intentions clear. "I've been thinking a lot about you lately. I know it's wrong, but I can't help it. I feel like we have a connection that Lauren doesn't understand. I don't know what to do with these feelings." Daniel's face went from frustration to pure disgust. "Oh, hell no," he muttered, shoving the phone toward me. "She's lost it." I felt my entire body go cold. This wasn't just petty jealousy anymore. This was calculated. She wanted to insert herself between us, to make me question Daniel, to make him uncomfortable, to plant some sick seed of doubt in my mind before the wedding. Daniel looked at me, his jaw clenched. "How do you want to handle this?" I took a deep breath. "Block her number. But first, take screenshots." He did exactly that. Then, without another word, he blocked her. I sat there for a moment, staring at the messages. My mind was spinning. This wasn't just her usual bratty behavior. This was something else. Something dangerous. The next morning, I decided I wasn't going to let this slide. I didn't respond to Madison directly. There was no point in engaging with someone so desperate for attention. But I did send an email to my mom and a few other close family members. I kept it straightforward. I attached the screenshots. Then I wrote, "This is the proof that I was right to uninvite Madison for my wedding. This behavior is toxic and manipulative. I have done everything I can to keep the peace, but this crosses a line. I hope now you understand why I've made the choices I have." Within an hour, my mom responded. And of course, she defended Madison. "Lauren, you must have misunderstood. I'm sure Madison didn't mean it that way. Maybe Daniel misread the messages?" I stared at the screen, my jaw tightening. Misread? The messages were clear as day. Mom continued, "She's just going through a tough time, and you're making it all about you." I closed my laptop. I was done. But the rest of the family? They weren't buying Madison's act anymore. Jenna called me within minutes. "Are you kidding me?" she nearly shouted. I knew Madison was a mess, but this is next level. Aunt Karen was just as furious. "You're absolutely right to keep her out of the wedding," she said. "She's proven time and time again that she doesn't respect you. This just confirms it." Even my mom's own sister reached out. "I love your mom," she said carefully, "but she's enabling Madison in ways that aren't healthy. I think she's starting to see it, though. She just doesn't want to admit it." That last part stuck with me. Could it be true? Was Mom finally realizing the monster she'd created? I doubted it. But then, 2 days before the wedding, I got another call. From Jenna. Her voice was tense. "I think you should know. Madison's trying to get into the wedding." I froze. "What do you mean?" "She's been calling around, trying to convince someone to bring her as their plus one." I nearly lost it. Daniel and I had already informed the venue and security that Madison was not allowed in. But the idea that she was still trying to find a way in made my skin crawl. "She's desperate," Jenna continued. "And honestly, I don't think she's done trying. That night, Daniel and I went over the security details one more time. I gave the venue a photo of Madison and my mom with strict instructions. If they show up, do not let them in. No exceptions. I even hired extra security, because at this point, I wouldn't put anything past Madison. And as much as I hated that it had come to this, I wasn't taking any chances. This was my wedding, and I'd be damned if I let her ruin it. The morning of my wedding was perfect. The sun was shining, the air was crisp but not too cold, and for the first time in months, I felt calm. My bridesmaids were buzzing around the bridal suite, fixing their makeup, sipping champagne, and making sure I didn't have a single worry in the world. I should have known it wouldn't last. Jenna came rushing in, face pale, eyes wide. I didn't even have to ask. My stomach dropped. "They're here," she whispered. I closed my eyes for a second. "Who?" "You know who." I let out a slow breath. "Madison and my mom." "Where?" Security stopped them at the entrance, but they're refusing to leave. Of course they were. I gripped the edge of the vanity, trying to stay calm. "What are they doing?" Jenna shifted uncomfortably. "Your mom is crying, saying she just wants to see her daughter get married." Madison, well, she's not exactly taking the heartbroken mother route. I swallowed hard. "Meaning?" Jenna winced. "She's screaming about how you're a horrible person and don't deserve this day." My jaw clenched. "Unbelievable. What do you want to do?" Jenna asked cautiously. I inhaled deeply, forcing my voice to stay steady. "Nothing." Jenna blinked. "Nothing?" I nodded. "If I go out there, it's just going to give them what they want, attention. Let security handle it." Jenna hesitated, but then nodded. "I'll check in with them and make sure they don't get anywhere near the ceremony." As soon as she left, I forced myself to focus. I could hear faint shouting in the distance. It took everything in me not to storm outside and end this once and for all. But I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't let them ruin this for me. I turned back to the mirror and adjusted my veil, staring at my reflection. This is my day. A few minutes later, Jenna returned. They're still refusing to leave. The venue manager offered to call the police, but they're worried it'll cause an even bigger scene. I sighed. This was exactly why I uninvited them. "Are they still at the entrance?" I asked. Jenna nodded. "Yeah. Security won't let them in, but they're making a show of it. A few guests saw what was happening on their way in." "Great. Just great." "Fine," I said through gritted teeth. "Let them throw their tantrum. We're starting on time." Jenna smiled. "Good. Because you have a wedding to get ready for?" And somehow I did. Because the moment I stepped outside and saw Daniel waiting for me, looking handsome and nervous and perfect, everything else faded away. This was what mattered. Not Madison. Not my mom. Not their drama. Just this. The ceremony was magical. I barely remembered the words we exchanged. I just remembered the way Daniel looked at me, the way my heart felt fuller than it had ever been. When we kissed, the crowd erupted into cheers, and I thought, nothing can ruin this moment. And I was right. Even though Madison and my mom had tried. Because during the cocktail hour, the whispers started. Guests were talking about something. Or rather, someone. Aunt Karen pulled me aside, looking both amused and exasperated. "You'll never guess what happened," she said. I sighed. "What now?" Karen smirked. "Madison tried to sneak in disguised as catering staff." My jaw dropped. "You're joking." "Oh, I wish I was." Karen shook her head. She managed to get past the main entrance, but then one of the actual caterers caught her literally carrying an empty tray, pretending to serve drinks. I stared at her, stunned. She didn't even try to make it convincing? Karen snorted. "Nope, just walked in like she belonged." And when they confronted her, she started screaming that she had a right to be here. I exhaled sharply, shaking my head. "Unbelievable." Karen patted my shoulder. "Don't worry, security dragged her out before she could get anywhere near you." I should have been furious. But honestly, I just felt tired. Tired of Madison. Tired of the never-ending drama. I was done. So, I didn't let it ruin my night. I danced. I laughed. I soaked in every second with Daniel, with my real family, with the people who actually cared about me. And when the night ended, when we finally got back to our hotel room, I checked my phone. A dozen missed calls from my mom. I didn't even bother listening to the voicemails. I just turned my phone off and crawled into bed next to my husband. Madison and my mom could spin whatever story they wanted. I didn't care, because I was finally free. A week after the wedding, I was finally settling into married life. Daniel and I had just gotten back from a short but perfect honeymoon. A few quiet days at a cozy cabin, away from everything and everyone. No phone calls, no texts, no drama, just peace. I was done thinking about Madison, done with the guilt, the stress, the constant battle of trying to defend myself against her victim narrative. Then Jenna called. I almost didn't pick up, but something in my gut told me this wasn't just a casual chat. The second I answered, she blurted, "You're not going to believe this." I sighed, already regretting my decision. "Please don't say Madison's name." Jenna laughed. "Oh, I wish I could, but this is too good. Madison and your mom had a massive fight. Like, screaming match. And guess what?" I waited. Mom kicked her out of the house. I sat up straight. "Wait, what?" Jenna was practically giddy. "Yeah. Apparently, Madison's been sulking around ever since the wedding, complaining to anyone who will listen about how unfair everything was, how she was betrayed by you, how your wedding ruined her life." I rolled my eyes. "Of course. But here's where it gets good." Jenna took a dramatic pause. "She turned on your mom. Said it was her fault you didn't cancel the wedding. Said mom should have done more to stop it." I laughed. I couldn't help it. "Oh, so now it's mom's fault?" "Yep." She apparently went off, saying mom failed her, that she was weak for not forcing you to reconsider. I leaned back against the couch, shaking my head. And that was mom's breaking point? Pretty much. Mom lost it. Told Madison she was tired of the drama, tired of the tantrums, and that she needed to grow the hell up. I raised my eyebrows. "Mom said that?" Jenna snorted. "I know, right? She finally hit her limit. Told Madison to pack her things and leave." I exhaled, processing everything. Madison had finally pushed too far. "So where is she now?" I asked. Jenna shrugged. "Couch surfing, probably. She's staying with a friend for now, but I doubt that'll last. She's pissed, though. Told people she's done with the family, and that you brainwashed everyone against her." I laughed again. "I brainwashed them? Seriously?" "Oh yeah. According to Madison, you manipulated mom into turning against her." I shook my head. There was no winning with her. She was never going to take responsibility, never going to realize that she was the problem. And honestly, I didn't care anymore. For the first time in my life, I felt free. No more guilt. No more walking on eggshells. No more Madison and mom trying to make everything about them. I was done. I had my life, my husband, my peace, and I wasn't looking back.